Garrett Haake is back on the trail for us. Good to see you, Garrett. Happy fatherhood. He's in Las Vegas. He's following perhaps the single most important race in the country these days, tipping point-wise, the Senate race in Nevada. Ellison Barber is on the ground in Georgia. So, Garrett, let me start with you. Good to have you back. And we threw you right into the fire there, and you have produced two easily the most important Senate race the East Coast doesn't talk about.
Well, Chuck, as a viewer this summer when I was home on paternity leave, I kept wondering why there wasn't more coverage of this race, because I do think it's going to be so important. It appears to be Republicans' best chance to pick up a Senate seat. And, you know, Joe Biden talked about back and forth. Since about Labor Day, it has been only fourth for the Republicans here. Adam Laxalt took a narrow lead around Labor Day in public and in private polling, and he seems to be holding on to it. You know, you talk about how campaigns position themselves, how they act. I spent a little bit of time with both candidates yesterday, and it felt from the Laxalt campaign like that was a campaign that was trying to run out the clock, that they thought they were ahead, they were going to try to run things out. And you can kind of see why. The issue set here in Nevada has settled around things the Republicans are just more comfortable with right now. Talking about inflation, talking about economy. It's not that Laxalt has some especially better plan, but the feeling is that voters here might just want to punish the Democratic Party, might want to punish incumbents for $5 gas prices and inflation among the top of the 50 states. And I got the sense of that, too, when I talked to Senator Cortez Masto. She tried to take credit for some of the accomplishments of the Democratic-controlled Senate, particularly the bipartisan accomplishments. But, boy, she did not want to be tied to the president of the United States, the leader of her party, Joe Biden. Listen to what she told me when I asked how the president could help her in such a tight race. What would you like to see from him? Would you like to see him campaign for you? Was he talking about abortion the other day? Is that helpful? What can he do to help you?
Well, I can tell you what I hear from Nevadans, and that's my priority, and it's not what you just asked me. It is about everyday issues, kitchen table issues, how we do this together. That's my priority. Making sure Nevadans and families and single parents and their children and everybody in this community has the same opportunity at success like my family had in this community.
As people finally hear our message and understand that her whole message, that she doesn't know who Joe Biden is and has never supported Joe Biden, that's what she spent the spring and summer doing. Now the voters understand that her record is her record. She never breaks from her party. That's why you're seeing the huge break our direction. People know we need change.
The strategies there are so clear, Chuck. I mean, you see Senator Cortez Masto trying to bank a little bit on her own personal brand, on her local ties, to rise above a president who's broadly unpopular here. Adam Laxalt doesn't want to let her do it. It's the ultimate cliche in politics, but it sets up a turnout election. And in Nevada, Democrats have sometimes been able to squeeze a couple extra points out when they really need it because the turnout operations here can be so sharp.
And, Garrett, I'm curious what you're finding. The governor's race is very divisive, too, pretty close. But in that case, I'd say narrow advantage to the incumbent there, the Democrat Sisolak. Are there split-ticket voters, or do we expect these races to conform?
I suspect you're going to see both of these races go together. My presumption coming into this state was that Sisolak might get punished for the COVID shutdowns. But talking to voters, talking to the various campaigns, that doesn't seem to be the case. Instead, I think what you're seeing is that Laxalt actually, perhaps due to how close he became to Trump, how much he tied himself to Trump's election denialism, gets a little bit more of a boost from the far right of the Republican Party than does Joe Lombardo, the Republican nominee for governor, believe it or not. So to the degree there's separation there, you might see Laxalt with the slightly better numbers. But I think every indication is this state is a pure test of the political environment. And as goes one of those statewide candidates, likely as go all of them.
Yeah, Lombardo might overperform in Clark County, Laxalt, but underperform rural. He could find a way to balance it out to get his numbers, but that's going to be fascinating to watch. Garrett, like I said, good to have you back, and I know you miss, I'm guessing you're missing being right there all the time, but they keep growing up. I promise you, they keep growing.
That's what I'm afraid of, Chuck.
It is. I miss it. Mine's in college now, Garrett. It's scary. Ellison, let's move to you. We're in Georgia. What are you finding today? I can tell you the biggest takeaway I had coming away is how good it is to be a Republican who is not tainted by Trump. Because, boy, are Kemp and Raffensperger in such a better place than those that have Trump ties.
Yeah, I mean, they've done quite well. And then also you look at the Senate race that we have followed so closely here. And I mean, it really is a statistical tie right now. You have, obviously, Herschel Walker is someone who is a Trump-backed candidate. He's been friends with Trump for quite a long time, but he really hasn't spent a lot of time of late talking about Trump. Instead, he focuses on the economy. He really drills in at campaign events, trying to tie inflation, the price of gas, on Senator Warnock and President Biden, making the argument that the two are essentially one and the same because he says Senator Warnock votes with President Biden 96% of the time. We tend to see Senator Warnock on the campaign trail trying to emphasize the work and legislation that he has done in Washington, D.C., legislation that he says directly impacts Georgia. He will talk a little more now. He will talk about some of the personal controversies surrounding his opponent. But typically, we don't see him really get quite in the ring on some of those issues. He and his campaign have sort of stayed back. One argument that we've heard from sources close to Walker's campaign is because Warnock is going through a divorce himself, a messy divorce dealing with custody disputes, and maybe that they don't want to get involved in it. But look, this week, I think we're seeing how tight this race is and where things are going to be going in the final stretch, because Senator Warnock has two new ads out, both of them very explicitly going after Walker for some of the personal controversies that have surrounded him and the campaign. Listen.
For you, Herschel Walker wants to ban abortion.
There's no exception in my mind. Like I said, I believe in life. There's not a national ban on abortion right now, and I think that's a problem.
But for himself,
Herschel Walker paid for an abortion for his then-girlfriend.
She supported her claims with a $575 receipt from the abortion clinic.
Even his own son is saying Walker is lying.
Is that your signature on the check, though?
So obviously, Herschel Walker has adamantly denied that abortion allegation mentioned in the ad. He has called that a flat-out lie. But we talked about this just a few days ago, Chuck, that on the campaign trail, in attack ads, Senator Raphael Warnock usually doesn't go quite all the way there. The most aggressive we have heard him bring up some sort of controversy related to Herschel Walker was on the debate stage when he mentioned an incident involving police. Other than that, they've stayed on the edges of it. They've let other outside groups run these attack ads. Now it seems like the gloves are sort of coming off, and this is a notable shift, and especially given where we are in the campaign, early voting underway, so close to Election Day. It seems like they realize that they are very close, and maybe this is a final push for the Warnock side to get people out to motivate their voters on some of those issues and questions about Walker.
Well, Ellison, as you note, it is notable that the campaign itself is now paying for these ads. You know, if you want to read how polls have turned, sometimes those certain ads that get put up this late are kind of tells.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.